Yo guys, what is up? Welcome back to some more Tempest Rising or Tempest Rising news, because Gamescom 2022 has happened over the last few days and there's been a gameplay demo been available, and also the developers which are on screen now. Actually, this is the game director and the producer have been on the screen and answered like 30 minutes of questions. So I'll leave this link for this video. There's like a pinned comment or in the description. You can have a watch for it yourself, but otherwise if you don't want to watch the full thing, I've already been through and like answered a few questions and got like a bit of notes, so like a summarized version of what you find out here. So this guy here is the game director. He's called Fred Schreiber or Schreiber, something like that. This guy is called Melter or Melder, and he's the producer. So yeah, game director, producer. They've also got another guy on it called the lead game designer. Apparently his real name is Brandon, and if you find him on Twitter, he's like called Wayward Strategy. He's got a website where he's basically played loads of RTS games over the years and detailed all the different pros and cons and what makes RTS games fun and stuff like that, like the different ways of collecting resources and base building and all kind of stuff like that. So they've clearly got some guys on it who know and love RTS for sure. They say, or they reiterate, that they're basing it on games from the 90s. They mention games like Dune 2, StarCraft, Warcraft, Command & Conquer, which I assume is Command & Conquer 1. And specifically with individual unit control and management. It's not like big squads or big groups of units. In it, they do confirm there is a unit cap of 300 currently, which is there. You can see it at the top right hand corner of my screen. At one point, they have like 3 or 4 tanks and maybe like 20-30 infantry on screen. Well, actually, maybe it was less than that. Maybe one unit is one unit. Well, maybe it was 27 in total, but it had like it did say 27 out of 300. And compared to what I saw actually on the screen, maybe we show it actually. It did seem like the unit cap is currently quite high. So there you've got like 22. Obviously you can't see what's off the screen. That's 30 out of 300. You can have 10 times that. Actually, it doesn't seem that much now, does it? If you can have 10 times that, it doesn't actually seem that much, does it? But they did say obviously it's based on optimization for the engine. They want the most people with even like weak GPUs to be able to play it. Not everyone's got the craziest GPU or CPU, but they're trying to experiment with increasing it as much as possible. But it was a little bit of a downer to hear that there will be a unit cap, because previous Command & Conquers, at least the good ones that I know of, did not have a unit cap. So hopefully they can increase it as much as possible, or hopefully make the engine optimization as amazing as possible, so that we can increase that. I would really like to see it increased. They do mention something about the game, like a potential features that will come later on, or what they'll mention later on. One of them is called the Doctrine, which you can actually see over here. No, I don't think at any point they click it here, but they also mention something about requisition as well, something like that. I get the feeling as you go through the campaign, you might be able to unlock and you might be able to customize your army, or at least when you're actually in a game, you might be able to click Doctrines and maybe you can get 10% extra range, or I don't know, 10% extra damage, or I don't know, call in a special support power or something like that. That is a support power bar there on the left hand side. By the way, he called in an airstrike in the campaign. He unlocked the airstrike and he uses that in a second. Actually, might as well show it now since we're on it, to actually blow up that bridge. Not bridge, sorry, gate. He says that there will be a strong RPG element. He goes on to explain the story about his set in 1997, nuclear war in the 60s from the Cuban Missile Crisis, basically leads to a nuclear winter through the 70s to the like kind of mid 90s. And during that time, these kind of vines or plants come from the ground, and humans basically realize that you can use them as like mini nuclear fusion reactors, and that's like a solution for the energy crisis. All the menus, like the UI, all of this lot, all looks very, very well made and well put together. It's not like just been rushed out for the demo just with like solid bars or anything like that. You can clearly see the detail that's gone into it. When you drag a box, it's not just like dragging a big bright green box like on some of the indie kind of style RTS games where there's just been like 1 or 2 guys into it. On the game, you can tell that it's got like a bigger budget and had more time put into it and stuff like that. But yeah, you can see like this is part of the campaign. This guy talks to you. Like, first of all, when I saw this, I looked at it from a distance. They see the detail on like his hair and his face. And from a distance, it actually looked real to me at first. Of course, when you see it close, then you realize, okay, it's CGI. But you can ask him different questions. And he does say at one point as well, the game director does say that there will be difficult decisions for you to make throughout the campaign. Yeah, he emphasizes difficult. So maybe throughout the campaign you can choose to, I don't know, wipe out the civilian population or at the cost of like eliminating the enemy or something like that, or maybe you get to leave them and you get to protect them, or there might be different decisions you have to make, and maybe that will branch off into different areas of the campaign, or at least there'll be some decisions you have to make. The third faction, they give a little bit of information about it, but they don't tell you what it's going to be. So obviously we know there's the GDF, the Global Defense Force, and we know there's the TD, which is a Tempest Dynasty. But we don't know what the third one is yet. They say it's not aliens, it's something unexpected, and we know that it's linked to these Tempest vines that come from the ground. So could it be like some bugs or creatures that have been living underground and the nuclear war woke them up or gave them special powers? Or could it be that it's a species that's like kind of evolved and come to be as part of the nuclear war, and yeah, maybe these maybe they, whatever creatures it is or whatever, they start harvesting these things and then it bursts out to ground. I don't know. I get the feeling there might be some kind of, they've like woken up Mother Nature. It might be like some plant creatures or something like that. I don't know. That's but yeah, the third faction is not actually revealed. They do say that the models here are actually the same models used in all the CGI in the movies and stuff like that. They actually just got better textures. So here they might have like, I don't know, a 1080p texture, but then they might use an 8K texture or something like that in the movie. It's the same models, which is, I thought was pretty cool. The max zoom, they talk about that, is pretty much what you can see on screen now. So it's not crazy high and it's not also crazy zoomed in. I think that's also part of optimization to keep the FPS high. You don't want to be able to zoom out too much or it will lag your PC and your FPS will drop. The GDF infantry units, they mentioned some of these. So these ones here I think are called the Field Scout. They're like your basic infantry. They have a greater range and more damage than the Tempest Dynasty equivalent, but I get the impression that the Tempest Dynasty can collect quicker because they've got more harvesters and they've got those mobile harvesters, and they might be more of a spammy faction, so they might have the superior numbers over these ones. A few RTS games have it like that, don't they? It's good to have differences. What, a more spammy one versus a more quality over quantity one. These ones back here are called drone operators, and they have these little drones. They do seem to be flying around a little bit too fast for my liking at times. You can see these drones flying around now, but they're good. Apparently these drones are good against vehicles and against structures. So that actually if they're good against vehicles and structures, that actually makes your infantry quite powerful, doesn't it? Maybe that's like the equivalent of a tank hunter, like for China in Zero. Instead of having like a rocket trooper or something like that, you've actually got these drone operators, and the fact that they're good against vehicles and structures, because that actually makes, if you've got infantry, which are good against infantry, and then you've got a drone operator, that makes you good against everything, maybe apart from air units, doesn't it? Will there be super weapons? Someone asked. He basically said no, there won't be super weapons, which is a bit of a shame. I hope they will reconsider that, or at least the special weapons apparently they're going to have, which is like the airstrike that I showed you a second ago, might be their equivalent. But there's something about building a structure and then using a particle cannon or using a nuke or something like that, that's like kind of special and kind of unique to Command and Conquers and RTS games. I would like that to be, but who knows? Let's give them a chance. Let's see about the special, what do they call them? Special weapons. I also would, in terms of what's good from Zero, I like in Zero you can kill some stuff and then you can actually gain XP, and that unlocks your support powers rather than just being able to use just be able to use them. So I hope there's some kind of way of earning them that then allows you to use it. I imagine they have that covered, but it's not quite clear in this video. Unit veterancy does not seem to be a thing at the moment, but maybe they'll consider that in the future. Maybe that's something they'll do towards the end, or maybe they'll do that next, because maybe it's harder to balance if you start adding unit veterancy into it. But there's something special again about winning a game with maybe like a Vet 3 tank when otherwise you probably wouldn't normally be able to win, because you've had such good micro with that. You're rewarded by getting a unit veterancy. Yeah, there's something special and something cool about that, I think. So maybe that will come in the future. They did mention co-op, modding, and mapping, but they said that's not basically done yet, but they'll give more information on that later. There's also a riot medic in here as well, which basically, you can see him there. He's apparently a specialist unit, has his own storyline. heals your troops. You can also place the turret down, which heals your units in a circle as well, like he's doing now, actually. So when you want to hold a choke point, that might be a good time to deploy that, and it heals all your units in a circle. It is on a cooldown, so that will disappear, it sounds like, after a while. The trees and stuff like that seem crushable. Well, they are crushable, not seem. They are crushable by the tank. The tank just seems like unnaturally fast sometimes. You see, I like the tire tracks, that's great, but it just seems like a bit unnaturally fast sometimes. And I've got a timestamp for you in a second. The harvester movement seems a little bit odd at times as well. So if I look at 24:35 here, so this is the GDF harvester. Fills up this little bar as the Tempest vines are being harvested. So the vines are going down and that bar is going up. You can see the leaves there getting smaller. But then the movement that I think looks weird is now. Watch it. There's like a bit of a Michael Jackson slide into his position. The fact that then opens and then its thing kind of tips, that's all really cool. And when it drives off now, that's cool as well. But the fact that it slid there just looked to me a little bit weird. Maybe that'll get looked at. But yeah, the tank movement, if I look at 1943 here. You just watch the tank and like how fast it kind of moved its turret, and then the way it just spun around really quick just feels a bit unnatural. I'm not saying it needs to be the most slow unit in the world, but I would probably try and see how that looks on like 10% slower rotation at least. This feels weird if it can rotate that quick, but yeah, I don't know, maybe it just plays better overall like that. Someone in a previous video said about the contrast and the colors, and it all feels like a little bit samey, kind of hard to distinguish units at times. And I mean, where's a better example? Yeah, just the contrast and the colors. It's not, I mean, you can see there's a drone there, but if you were looking from a distance or you weren't paying attention, maybe you wouldn't notice. It's people in CSGO, they change their NVIDIA settings, don't they, to make all the colors more vibrant so you can distinguish an enemy against a certain wall easier. But here, like, look there, without them actually being selected, everything kind of looks like the same colors of rocks and stuff like that. You can clearly see where the UI starts here, but everything else just looks kind of, don't want to say bland or like kind of all muddled, like there's not a wide variety of colors being used, the color palette or contrast. I'm not an expert in any of that stuff, but it comments stood out for me, and actually I do kind of agree with it. And at one point, the director answers a question about different strategies, basically saying that in previous Command and Conquers or previous games, some of the best strategies were always like to sell your MCV and build loads of tanks and do like some kind of a hard rush. They're trying to balance that and actually make it viable to do other things. So you'll be able to build wall to build defenses, and it actually won't be too bad, at least against some of the hard rushes and stuff like that. So they are trying to balance it and vary it rather than just make it all-in rush every single time. Like actually Command & Conquer Remastered. Command & Conquer 1 is all about that, isn't it? you build a war factory and just spam a load of tanks and move your tanks around in a certain manner, and that's basically it. So yeah, I think I've mentioned everything I wanted to mention there. Yeah, one thing I would like to see is right-click scroll. Basically, all the Command & Conquer General 0 Hour pros are using right-click scroll. The Brandon guy answered me in the Discord channel that basically they've got middle-click scroll at the moment. But I just feel like, as a competitive player myself, take your fingers off the two most important mouse buttons to put it on the middle one to scroll around. And then you might scroll up by mistake or scroll down by mistake as well. It feels a bit clunky, and I would like it to be right-click. I can't think of any... Well, I would be interested to hear about any competitive players or any competitive games that are actually using middle-click to scroll around. I think it's clunky, and I don't see any reason why that can't be right-click. Or at least remappable so you can change it from middle to right. I also would like to see super weapons. I would like to see the unit cap increased, because I suppose if you've got 23 on screen there, you can have 10 times that and a few more. You can have like 12 times that on the screen before you reach your max. I don't know. It's just something about in the other Command and Conquers you could have unlimited units, and it's just I get the optimization thing, but hopefully they can increase it as much as possible, make everything as efficient as possible, so even like the low end GPUs can still run a lot of units on the screen. So yeah, I'd like to see those two things. And was there anything else I wanted to mention? Yeah, the super weapons. I'd be interested to know why there's no super weapons, and if it's just going to be these special weapons or support powers, are they at least earnable, like through killing other units, and will there be unit veterancy? I'd like to have answers on all of those 4 things at least. So anyway, yeah, I won't ramble on any further. Let me know what you thought. Watch this whole thing. Also join the Discord and give any suggestions there. And I'll see you in the next one. GG.